Admiral Kedvar stood on the bridge of the Sovereign's will, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. 300 years had passed since the last human transmission, and now the blue-green world belonged to the Corvani Empire. His forearms worked efficiently across multiple control panels, coordinating the descent of 200 colonial vessels toward humanity's former home. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 worlds. "All systems optimal, Admiral," replied his aide, Commander Velka. The advanced scouts confirmed no active defenses, no energy signatures suggesting civilization. Earth appears completely abandoned, just as our intelligence suggested. Kethvar's compound eyes reflected satisfaction. The humans had built something magnificent before their mysterious disappearance, and now it would serve the Empire. Orbital scans revealed intact cities, functioning power grids, and technology that surpassed even Corvani engineering in some areas. It was the greatest prize in galactic history. Begin landing operations. Establish primary bases in former human population centers. I want full planetary surveys within one rotation period. The colonial fleet descended like mechanical rain. Massive transport ships settled into the ruins of New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other human cities. Corvani soldiers emerged in environmental suits, their movements cautious but confident. They had claimed dead world before, but none this well-preserved. Captain Zarth led the first ground team into Manhattan. The towering structures rose around them like metallic forests, their surfaces still gleaming despite centuries of abandonment. No dust, no decay, no signs of the collapse that should have followed 3 centuries of neglect. "These preservation systems are incredible," Zarth reported to Fleet. "Everything appears exactly as the humans left it. Even their vehicles remain functional." Her team moved through empty streets, their instruments detecting no life signs but registering energy flows throughout the city's infrastructure. Traffic lights still cycled through their patterns. Digital displays showed information in human languages. The subway system hummed with power, trains running their eternal schedules through empty tunnels. "It's like they just vanished," whispered Sergeant Moldeck, his voice crackling to the calm. "No bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication of what happened to them." Kethvar monitored the reports from orbit, increasingly impressed by their prize. Human technology operated with an efficiency the Empire had never achieved. Their fusion reactors ran without maintenance, their computers processed data with impossible speed, and their manufacturing facilities continued producing goods for a population that no longer existed. "Admiral," Velka interrupted his observations, "we're receiving reports from all landing sites. The same conditions everywhere. Perfectly preserved cities, active infrastructure, but absolutely no organic life." "Excellent. Begin Phase 2 operations. Establish colonial administration in the former government buildings. Start mapping human technological assets for integration into our systems." Across the globe, Corvani forces occupied Earth's greatest achievements. They set up command centers in the Pentagon, the Kremlin, and the European Central Command. Their scientists began analyzing human computers, finding databases filled with the complete history of a species that had simply vanished at the height of their technological advancement. The humans had been explorers, builders, dreamers. Their art covered the walls of empty museums. Their music played from automated systems. Their literature filled vast digital libraries. They had been preparing for something. Massive construction projects, deep space exploration missions, research into exotic physics that pushed the boundaries of known science. Why did they leave all this behind? Zarth wondered as her team explored the human archives. They were clearly planning for the future, then suddenly gone. Colonel Thackmore, commanding ground operations in North America, discovered the first unusual readings 3 days after landing. His equipment detected energy spikes from deep underground, far beneath the foundations of major cities. "Admiral, we have anomalous readings from multiple sites. Something is active beneath the surface, deep, maybe several kilometers down. The energy signatures don't match any known technology." Kethvar frowned at this development. "Investigate immediately. Deploy deep scanning equipment. If the humans left automated systems running, I want to know about them. The investigation teams descended into Earth's depths through human-built access tunnels that seemed to lead nowhere. The energy readings grew stronger as they went deeper, accompanied by vibrations that had no apparent source. Miles underground, they found massive chambers carved from solid rock, filled with machinery that defied easy understanding. "These aren't human designs," reported the lead scientist, Dr. Vendar. "The architecture is similar, but the technology is unlike anything in their surface cities. It's more advanced, more integrated with the planet's geology." The discovery should have warned them. Instead, the Corvani saw only greater prizes waiting to be claimed. They began establishing mining operations, preparing to extract whatever lay in Earth's depths. They failed to notice the subtle changes beginning across the planet. Power grids that had run at steady levels for centuries started drawing more energy. Dormant satellites in Earth's orbit began transmitting signals to empty space. Deep ocean sensors registered movement in the abyssal depths where no movement should exist. By the end of the first week, Corvani colonial government was fully established on Earth. They had claimed humanity's greatest cities, begun cataloging human achievements, and started the process of integrating Earth's resources into the empire. Their scientists worked around the clock to understand human technology, while their administrators planned the settlement of millions of Corvani colonists. Admiral Ketvar stood in what had once been the United Nations building, now serving as Imperial headquarters. Through the windows, he watched Corvani shuttles moving between the towering human structures, his people beginning to make this world their own. "A perfect acquisition," he told Velka. "The humans built us a ready-made colony, complete with infrastructure and technology. The Empire will remember this as our greatest victory." Neither of them noticed a faint tremor that ran through the building's foundation, or the way the human computer systems seemed to be listening to every word. Dr. Vendar's excavation team had been drilling for 6 days when they broke through into the vast chamber. The space beyond their cutting tools was impossibly large, carved from solid bedrock with precision that surpassed Corvani engineering capabilities. Emergency lighting flickered on automatically as they entered, revealing architecture that seemed to breathe with organic curves and flowing lines. "Base camp, this is Excavation Team 7. Vendar reported through his comm, "We've reached the primary chamber. The scope is beyond our estimates. We're looking at a complex that extends for kilometers in every direction." The chamber walls pulsed with faint bioluminescent patterns, circuits that looked more grown than manufactured. In the center stood a massive crystalline structure, 30 meters tall and perfectly transparent. Within its depths, barely visible, was something that made Vendar's specialized heart skip beats. "There's something inside the crystal formation," he whispered. "It appears to be organic." Above ground, Admiral Ketvar reviewed the transmitted images with growing excitement. The crystal structure was clearly a preservation system of some kind, and the organic mass within might be the key to understanding what had happened to humanity. More importantly, it represented technology that could revolutionize the Empire's biological sciences. "Deploy a full research team," he ordered. "I want that chamber thoroughly mapped and analyzed. Whatever the humans left down there, it's ours now." Colonel Thackmore coordinated the surface operations as heavy equipment was lowered into the depths. The logistics were challenging. The access tunnels were designed for human-sized beings, not the massive excavation equipment the Corvani required. But their engineers were resourceful, and within days they had established a permanent research facility around the crystal structure. The deeper they dug, the more complex the underground systems became. They found networks of chambers connected by tunnels that formed geometric patterns when viewed from above. Each chamber contained variations of the same crystalline preservation technology, though most were empty. The few that contained organic material were sealed beyond their ability to access. "It's like a vast storage facility," Dr. Vendar explained to Admiral Ketvar during their daily briefing. But storage for what? And why build it so deep underground? Perhaps they were preserving their civilization before abandoning the planet, Ketvar suggested. A time capsule of some kind, meant to be discovered by whoever found Earth next. The theory seemed plausible until they discovered the control room. Hidden behind walls that looked solid but yielded to the right touch, they found a chamber filled with holographic displays showing real-time data from across the galaxy. Star charts, fleet movements, resource distributions, population counts. Information that was current to within days of their own arrival. "This is impossible," breathed Commander Velka as she studied the displays. "These readings are from Imperial space. How could human systems be monitoring our territory?" Dr. Vendar's team worked frantically to understand control systems. The interface was clearly designed for human use, but it responded to their touch. As they activated different displays, they began comprehending the true scope of what they had discovered. "Admiral, you need to see this." Vendar's voice carried a note of fear that made Kethvar's spines bristle. The humans didn't abandon Earth. They never left at all. The center display showed a three-dimensional map of the planet, dotted with millions of points of light. Each light represented one of the underground chambers, and each chamber was occupied. The organic masses within the crystals weren't specimens or artifacts. They were humans in some form of suspended animation. "There are billions of them," Vendar continued. "They're everywhere, under every continent, every ocean floor. They built the ultimate shelter and waited." Kethvar felt the first chill of genuine fear. Waited for what? Before anyone could answer, the displays around them began changing. The real-time galactic data was being updated and new information appeared. Detailed specifications of every Corvani vessel in the system, complete crew rosters, weapon capabilities, and defensive measures. The humans hadn't just been monitoring the Empire, they had been studying it on the surface. Similar revelations were occurring across the globe. In London, a research team discovered that the human internet had never gone offline. It had simply learned to hide its activities, becoming invisible to outside observation while maintaining connections to systems throughout human space. In Tokyo, engineers found manufacturing facilities that had been producing advanced materials for 3 centuries, stockpiling resources for an unknown purpose. Captain Zartich made perhaps the most disturbing discovery in the former NORAD complex. Deep within the mountain fortress, she found chambers filled with weapons that bore no resemblance to human military equipment from 300 years ago. These were devices of pure energy, capable of precision strikes across interstellar distances. "They've been preparing," she reported to Admiral Kethvar. "All this time, they've been building and planning and getting ready for something." The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had evolved. The surface abandonment was deliberate, a facade to hide the greatest transformation in galactic history. They had moved their entire civilization underground and into space, becoming something beyond what they had been when the Corvani first encountered reports of them. As if responding to their discovery, systems across Earth began activating openly. The subtle energy increases became massive power surges. Satellites that had been dormant suddenly blazed with activity, sending signals toward the outer solar system. Deep beneath the oceans, structures the size of cities began rising toward the surface. "Admiral," Commander Velka's voice carried panic barely held in check. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the outer system. Multiple objects approaching at significant fractions of light speed. They'll reach Earth in less than 6 hours." Kethvar realized with growing horror that they had walked into a trap centuries in the making. The humans had allowed the Empire to claim Earth, had waited for them to commit their forces, and now they were returning in strength that dwarfed anything the Corvani had brought. "All vessels, prepare for immediate departure," he ordered. "We're abandoning the planet." But as his communications officers tried to contact the fleet, they discovered that Earth's electromagnetic fields were being manipulated in ways that blocked their transmissions. The planet had become a prison, and the Corvani were about to discover what 3 centuries of human preparation could accomplish. In the depths beneath their feet, billions of crystalline chambers began to glow with increasing intensity. The first human emerged from the crystal chambers at exactly 1432 Universal Time. Dr. Vendar watched in fascination and terror as the preservation matrix dissolved, revealing a woman who looked nothing like the humans in historical records. Her skin had a subtle metallic sheen, her eyes glowed with inner light, and when she moved, it was with fluid grace that suggested fundamental changes to her biology. She looked directly at Vendar through the chamber's transparent walls and spoke in perfect Corvani. "Welcome to Earth, Doctor. We've been waiting for you." Across the globe, Similar awakenings were occurring by the millions. In Manhattan, Captain Zarth watched humans emerge from chambers that her sensors had insisted were empty just hours before. They moved through their ancient cities with purpose, reactivating systems that came online like sleeping giant awakening. "Base Command, this is Zarth," she transmitted frantically. "The humans are active. Repeat, the humans are active. They're everywhere, and they're not what they used to be." Admiral Kethvar received reports from every landing site simultaneously. The pattern was identical across the planet. Humans emerging from hiding places that had been invisible to Corvani sensors, taking control of their cities with technology that operated beyond Imperial understanding. "How many?" he demanded of Commander Velka. "Initial estimates suggest 12 billion, sir, but the numbers keep changing. Some of them seem to exist in multiple states simultaneously, and our sensors can't get reliable counts." The humans on the surface moved with coordinated precision that suggested either perfect telepathic communication or artificial intelligence integration. They didn't attack the Corvani forces immediately, but their presence was deeply unsettling. They simply appeared wherever Imperial personnel were stationed and began working around them, activating ancient machinery and preparing for something momentous. In the underground chamber, Dr. Vendar attempted communication with the woman who had first awakened. She stood outside his temporary research station, studying his equipment with eyes that seemed to see through matter itself. "What happened to your species?" he asked. "The historical records show you were biological, like us. What are you now?" "We became what we needed to become," she replied, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies Corvani ears couldn't normally detect. "When we realized that biological forms were insufficient for our survival, we chose evolution over extinction." "Evolution into what?" "Into something that can survive what's coming." Her words carried implications that made Vendar's specialized hearts race. "What's coming?" Instead of answering, she gestured toward the chamber's walls. The bioluminescent circuits began displaying images, star charts showing massive objects moving through space, heading toward not just Earth, but every inhabited world in this galactic sector. "The Devourers," she said simply. "We detected them 3 centuries ago, approaching from outside the galaxy. They consume worlds, entire civilizations, leaving nothing behind. Biological life cannot survive their feeding process." The images showed creatures of impossible size, entities that moved between stars like fish swimming through water. Where they passed, solar systems went dark, their matter converted into something else entirely. "We had 300 years to prepare," the woman continued, "to transform ourselves, to build the tools necessary for survival, to become something that could fight them. Your empire's expansion actually helped us. We've been using your communication networks to coordinate preparation across thousands of worlds." Admiral Kethvar, monitoring the conversation from orbit, felt reality shift around him. The greatest military conquest in Imperial history had been nothing more than a convenience for humanity's true purpose. "Sir," Commander Velka interrupted his growing panic. "The objects from the outer system are decelerating. They'll reach orbit in 2 hours. Energy readings are beyond our measurement capability." Through the bridge's main viewer, Kethvar could see lights appearing in Earth's sky. Not ships as the Corvani understood them, but structures of pure energy that defied physics. They moved with intelligence and purpose, taking positions around the planet in defensive formations. "Those are human vessels?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. They don't match any technology in our databases, but they're responding to signals from the surface." On Earth, the transformation accelerated. Human cities that had been empty for centuries filled with beings who moved between physical and energy states at will. Manufacturing facilities that had run automatically for 3 centuries suddenly increased production by factors of thousands, creating materials that existed partially outside normal space-time. Captain Zarth found herself face-to-face with a human male who materialized directly in front of her without triggering any of her proximity sensors. He was tall, ethereal, and when he moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around him. "You're not prisoners here, Captain," he said, "but you're witnesses. Your empire needs to understand what's coming and what it will take to survive." "Survive what?" she demanded, Her weapon trained on him, though she suspected it would be useless. "Look up," he replied. Above them, Earth's sky was changing. The familiar stars were disappearing, blocked out by something vast and dark that was approaching from interstellar space. It moved with purpose, and as it came closer, every electronic system on the planet registered its presence as a distortion in reality itself. Dr. Vendar watched the woman in the chamber interface directly with the crystalline control systems, her consciousness somehow merging with the planetary network. Through her, he could sense the vast intelligence that humanity had become, billions of minds linked in ways that transcended individual existence. "We tried to warn other species," she explained as data flowed to the chamber's displays. "But most civilizations aren't capable of the transformation required for survival. They remain trapped in biological limitations, unable to evolve quickly enough. What about the Empire? What about my people? That remains to be seen. Some of your kind show potential. Others—" She paused, accessing information from across the galaxy. "Others have already been consumed." The display showed imperial worlds on the galaxy's edge, planets that had gone silent in recent months. The official reports had blamed communication failures or local uprisings. The truth was far worse. Entire civilizations erased by entities that fed on consciousness itself. "How long do we have?" Vendar asked. "They'll reach this system within days. Earth is their primary target because they've detected our transformation. We represent something they haven't encountered before, a civilization that chose to evolve rather than simply develop technology." Above ground, Admiral Kethvar watched his worst nightmare unfold. The dark presence approaching Earth was larger than gas giants. It was clearly intelligent, and his own vessels, pride of the Imperial fleet, seemed like insects in comparison. "All ships," he ordered, "prepare for emergency departure. Maximum acceleration, any course that takes us away from this system." But as his fleet tried to engage their hyperspace drives, they discovered that space itself had been altered around Earth. The planet had become the center of a massive gravitational anomaly that prevented faster-than-light travel. They were trapped, along with 12 billion transformed humans who were preparing for a battle that would determine the fate of consciousness itself. The Devourer arrived like a wound in space itself, a presence so massive that Earth's gravity well became insignificant by comparison. Admiral Kethvar watched from the bridge of the Sovereign's will as reality twisted around the approaching entity. It wasn't a ship or even a creature in any sense his mind could process. It was hunger given form, an intelligence that consumed not just matter, but the very concept of existence. "Sir, all our weapon systems are offline," Commander Velka reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Not damaged, they simply don't function in the presence of that thing." Around Earth, the human energy constructs that had appeared hours earlier began to change configuration. They linked together, forming geometric patterns that created interference waves in space-time itself. Through these defensive networks, human voices spoke in unison across every communication channel simultaneously. "Imperial forces, you are under protection of the Terran Collective. Remain calm and observe. Your survival depends on understanding what you witness here." Down in the crystal chamber, Dr. Vendar experienced the battle through the enhanced senses of his human contact. She had introduced herself as Elena, though names seemed irrelevant when consciousness could flow between individual forms at will. Through her perception, he could sense the Devourer's true nature. "It feeds on neural patterns," Elena explained, her form flickering between solid matter and pure energy. "Every thought, every memory, every moment of consciousness becomes sustenance. Biological minds are particularly nutritious because they generate complex emotional resonances." "How do you fight something like that?" "By becoming something it cannot consume." The first engagement began in dimensions beyond normal perception. The human defensive network didn't fire weapons or launch missiles. Instead, it projected aspects to transform consciousness directly at the Devourer. Each projection carried the essence of human experience, but reconfigured in ways that made it incompatible with the entity's feeding mechanisms. Captain Zara Th watched from Manhattan as the sky above filled with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. Her human companion, who called himself Marcus, helped translate what she was seeing. "We're not fighting it with force," he explained. "We're making ourselves indigestible. Every attack it makes teaches it more about our new nature, and every lesson makes us more difficult to consume. The Devourer's response was to intensify its feeding attempt. Waves of psychic pressure swept across the solar system, designed to break down conscious resistance and prepare minds for absorption. The few Corvani who hadn't taken shelter in hardened positions simply ceased to exist, their consciousness torn away in an instant. But the humans remained, their transformed nature allowing them to surf the psychic waves rather than be destroyed by them. More than that, they began to adapt in real time, evolving new defensive capabilities with each assault. Impossible, Admiral Kevvar whispered. No species can evolve that quickly. We're not evolving. Elena's voice reached him through the ship's communication system. We're remembering every possible adaptation. Every potential response pattern was calculated and stored during our 3 centuries of preparation. We're simply accessing the solutions we already developed. The battle escalated beyond physical reality, in dimensions that existed only in the overlap between consciousness and quantum mechanics. Transformed humans engaged the Devourer in contests of pure thought. Each exchange lasted microseconds, but contained lifetimes of experience, strategy, and counter-strategy. Dr. Vendar found himself drawn into the conflict despite being biologically incompatible with the human network. Elena had established a limited interface that allowed him to perceive fragments of the greater battle. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Because your people need to understand what survival requires. The Devourers aren't unique. They're part of a cycle that repeats throughout the galaxy. Civilizations develop, reach a certain level of complexity, and then face this choice: evolve or be consumed." Through the interface, Vendar witnessed the true scope of human transformation. They hadn't just changed their biology. They had fundamentally altered their relationship with reality itself. Individual humans could exist as quantum probability states, making them impossible to target. They could merge consciousness temporarily to solve complex problems, then separate while retaining the insights gained. Most remarkably, they had learned to reproduce not through biology, but through transformation. Any sufficiently advanced consciousness could be upgraded to human standards if it chose to undergo the process. The offer extends to the Corvani Empire, Elena informed him, but the decision must be made freely and quickly. The Devourer will move on to other systems once it's finished here, one way or another. Above them, the battle reached its crescendo. The Devourer, frustrated by its inability to consume human consciousness, began to feed on space-time itself, trying to collapse the local region of reality into a more digestible form. This was what the humans had been preparing for. Their defensive network activated its final configuration, projecting not just consciousness, but structured reality patterns that reinforce the stability of local space. Where the Devourer tried to create chaos, humans projected order. Where it sought to unravel existence, they rewove the fundamental forces into stronger configurations. The conflict created resonance waves that propagated faster than light, carrying information about the battle to every inhabited world within 50 light years. Species across the region suddenly became aware that the mysterious disappearances on their frontier worlds had been caused by entities of unimaginable hunger, and that somewhere in the galaxy, someone was fighting back successfully. Admiral Kevvar received priority transmissions from the Imperial capital, demanding explanations for the massive energy signatures emanating from the Earth system. He found himself in the position of reporting that humanity, a species the Empire had classified as extinct, was single-handedly holding off a threat that could consume entire civilizations. "Sir," Commander Velka interrupted his increasingly surreal situation reports. "The entity is changing course, moving away from Earth." Through the view screen, they watched the Devourer begin to withdraw. It hadn't been destroyed. Entities of its nature might be beyond destruction, but it had been denied its goal. More importantly, it had learned that consciousness could evolve beyond its ability to consume. The victory belonged to humanity, but its implications extended far beyond a single battle. Across the galaxy, other species would soon face similar choices as more Devourers arrived from outside normal space-time. The humans had proved that evolution was possible, but each species would have to find its own path to transformation. As Earth's sky cleared and normal space-time reasserted itself, Dr. Vendar realized that the Corvani Empire stood at a crossroads that would determine the fate of his entire civilization. In the aftermath of the Devourer's retreat, Earth transformed once more. The billions of humans who had remained hidden in their crystalline chambers for 3 centuries emerged fully, turning the planet into a showcase of post-biological civilization. Cities that had been empty museums became living laboratories where consciousness and matter danced together in harmony. Dr. Vendar stood in what had once been a United Nations building, now serving as a meeting place between humanity and the Corvani delegation. Elena appeared before him not as energy or probability, but as something recognizably human yet fundamentally transcendent. "The offer we made during the battle remains valid," she said. "Your species can undergo the transformation process, but it requires abandoning everything the Corvani Empire represents." Admiral Kethvar, present via holographic projection from his flagship, struggled to maintain diplomatic protocol in circumstances no Imperial manual had ever prepared him for. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Evolution beyond biological limitations," Elena replied. "The ability to exist as pure consciousness while retaining individual identity. Integration with a collective intelligence that preserves personal autonomy. Essentially, survival of what makes you who you are while discarding the vulnerabilities that make you prey." Around them, examples of transformed humanity demonstrated the possibilities. Humans moved through walls by altering their quantum state, communicated complex ideas through direct consciousness transfer, and manipulated matter at the molecular level through focus and tension. They had become living proof that intelligence could transcend its original biological matrix. Captain Zartage, who had spent weeks observing human capabilities, asked a question that haunted every Corvani present. What happens to those who choose not to transform? Marcus, her human contact, answered with gentle honesty. They remain vulnerable to the next wave of devourers. And there will be a next wave. Our victory here has marked this region of the galaxy as contested territory. More entities will come, drawn by the resistance they detected. The implications were stark. The Corvani Empire could maintain its traditional biological nature and face inevitable consumption, or it could undergo radical transformation that would effectively end its existence as currently understood. "How many of your people survived the transformation process?" Admiral Kethvar asked. "All of them," Elena replied. "But survival isn't the same as unchanged continuation. The beings we were died to become what we are now. Some consider that acceptable. Others call it the ultimate death." Dr. Vendar had been studying the human transformation data for days, trying to understand the process from a scientific perspective. What he found challenged every assumption about consciousness and identity that Corvani science had developed. "You don't just change biology," he observed. "You fundamentally alter the relationship between individual and collective consciousness. Corvani civilization is built on hierarchical structures, competitive advancement, and individual achievement. Your transformation would eliminate the social foundations of our entire species." "Yes," Elena agreed. "That's why the choice must be made freely, by individuals rather than governments. No empire or collective authority can make this decision for others. It requires personal commitment to abandoning everything you've been in order to become something entirely new." Commander Velka raised the practical concerns that occupied most Imperial minds. "What about our colonies, our trade networks, our technological infrastructure? Does transformation require abandoning everything we've built?" "Not abandoned, transcended," Marcus explained. "Transformed humans can interface with any technology, biological or artificial. We can maintain the useful aspects of civilization while discarding the limitations. But yes, concepts like ownership, territorial control, and resource scarcity become meaningless when consciousness can manipulate matter directly." The conversations continued for days, with human representatives patiently explaining the implications while Corvani officials struggled to comprehend the magnitude of change involved. Through it all, monitoring systems tracked the approach of more devourers from deep space, entities drawn by the psychic resonance of the recent battle. "How long do we have to decide?" Admiral Kethvar eventually asked. Elena consulted the vast network of consciousness that humanity had become, accessing probability calculations that span multiple dimensions of possibility. 17 standard months before the next major incursion. Enough time for individuals to make informed choices, but not enough for traditional governmental deliberation processes. The Admiral realized that humanity was offering the Corvani Empire something unprecedented: advanced warning of extinction, coupled with a proven survival method. No other species in galactic history had received such an opportunity. But accepting the offer meant acknowledging that the Empire itself would cease to exist in any recognizable form. Dr. Vandar made his decision first. Standing before the assembled human representatives, he formally requested transformation for himself and his research team. I've spent my career studying consciousness and evolution. This is a logical next step in both fields. The process began immediately. In a chamber specially configured for Corvani biology, Vendar underwent a fundamental restructuring that would preserve his essential self while granting him capabilities beyond biological limitation. The experience was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Death and rebirth combined in moments of transcendence that redefined existence itself. When he emerged, still recognizably himself but fundamentally changed, he possessed direct access to the collective knowledge of transformed humanity while retaining his individual Corvani perspective. "It's not death," he reported to his former colleagues. "It's birth. Everything that made me who I was remains, but expanded beyond the boundaries of biological thinking." Word of successful Corvani transformation spread throughout the Empire, carried by quantum communications that human technology had helped imperial systems develop. Individual Corvani began arriving at Earth not as conquerors, but as applicants for evolutionary advancement. Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet gradually empty as crew members chose transformation over traditional imperial service. He faced a choice that would define not just his personal future, but his understanding of duty, honor, and species loyalty. Elena found him on the bridge of the Sovereign's Will, studying star charts that showed the approaching Devourer formations. "The empire you served is ending regardless of your choice," she said gently. "The question is whether it dies completely or evolves into something that can survive what's coming." Kethvar looked out at Earth, where human cities glowed with the light of transcendent consciousness, and transformed Corvani worked alongside their new evolutionary siblings to prepare defenses against the next incursion. "Will I still be Corvani?" he asked. "You'll be something that includes being Corvani, but isn't limited by it," Elena replied. "The choice is always individual, always free, and always irreversible." As the first transformed Corvani began transmitting their experiences back to the Empire, Admiral Kethvar made a decision that would echo across the galaxy, not just for himself, but for every species facing the same choice between evolution and extinction. Above them, a new sun rose in Earth's sky. Not stellar fire, but the combined radiance of billions of consciousness that had chosen transformation over death, creating light that would guide other civilizations toward their own moments of evolutionary choice. The age of purely biological intelligence was ending. The age of transcendent consciousness had begun.